noteworthy, of course, that as there was this seminar, event, whatever you call it, on COVID preparedness, Donald Trump off to play golf. Now, you can say, you know, these talk fests, what do they solve? But, gee, maybe there would have been a kernel or two of advice in there.
Yeah, certainly sending a signal. Look, you know, the other point to note here, it's, you know, a very unusual G20 for an outgoing US president, presumably outgoing US president, and it being virtual. You know, the decision for Trump to videotape something ahead of time, play that, and go off and spend the rest of his day doing other things. Not surprising, that's where he may have landed on that one. But again, for the American people and those of us watching around the world, the disjuncture between the depth of the COVID crisis in the United States and what how the president of the United States is spending his day, G20 or not, is rather jarring.
Couple of thousand deaths, give or take, a day at the moment, 195,000 cases on that day. But the legal challenges continue. I mean, I know we've spoken about this before, and at the start we were emphasising, of course, yes, take the legal avenues. Anyone that knows about individual acts of corruption, widespread, whatever it might be, it should be exposed. But this has just become farcical, hasn't it? I mean, this just seems ridiculous. The longer it goes on, the more far-fetched it seems.
Two things to contribute to this, Tom. One is the judgment by the federal judge that heard one of the Pennsylvania cases. The judgment is scathing of the Trump case, what they sought to do there. The fact that some counties provided the ability for voters to repair possibly faulty mail ballots. The judge said, yes, different counties handled that differently, but what the Trump campaign sought to do was on the basis of that sort of variation in the way the counties of Pennsylvania were handling that, the Trump campaign wanted all mail votes in the state invalidated, and the judge laughed it out of court, essentially, dismissed it with prejudice. And that's the nature of the claims at this point. The other data point, Tom, is a Republican governor of Maryland, Governor Hogan, used the words banana republic to describe sort of the spectacle in the United States at the moment. And every day there's another Republican putting comments like that out there. It is starting to sort of just underscore, you know, the world is moving on. The only person it seems that isn't moving on is Donald Trump and that large portion of the Republican Party that dare not cross him.
Yeah, well, I guess that's the interesting watch from here till January and even beyond. Let's play what we heard from what we'll call her an erstwhile member of Donald Trump's legal team and explain it after. This was Sidney Powell making a claim the other day.
What we are really dealing with here and uncovering more by the day is the massive influence of communist money through Venezuela, Cuba, and likely China in the interference with our elections here in the United States.
Apparently, that was too out there, even for the Trump legal team, a statement saying that Sidney Powell was practicing law on her own. Now, how that managed to happen, she was right alongside Rudy Giuliani, was mopping his brow, of course, the die no longer on there. I mean, it would be hilarious if it weren't, as you say, doing this serious undermining of the US right now.
That's right, Tom. Look, every couple of hours, it seems, there's another sort of semi-farcical sort of moment coming out of this, and this statement just in the last couple of hours or whatever it is that Sidney Powell, despite appearing in a press conference alongside Rudy Giuliani only a couple of days ago, apparently now they've parted ways. It's plus that, you know, on the other hand, and the White House itself with the COVID cases that are still popping up from in and around the president and senior staff in the White, makes you do wonder, you know, who's running the show there at the moment. Either, you know, the governing of the United States, the president handing his legal strategy. You've even got, you know, Mick Mulvaney. We did a webinar with him through Joe Hockey's good offices the other day. Even he's come out and said, look, if you're going to contest the election results, at least do it competently. When the best you can do is sort of a little, Rudy Giuliani, and then it's not even clear who the lawyers are. You've got prominent law firms backing out of the cases. That judge in Pennsylvania that I referenced earlier drew attention to that in his findings about just how farcical even the pleadings and the process was, how disorderly it was, given the seriousness of the allegations being raised by the Trump campaign and the dire nature of the remedy that they were seeking, that is disenfranchising all male voters in the state of Pennsylvania. The disjuncture between the stakes here on the one hand and the way the case is being prosecuted without denying anybody's rights to due process at all.
Yeah.
But just that disjuncture as itself, I think, is rather telling, Tom.
Yeah, as has been noted, the cases themselves come down to these nitpicking versus, the grand rhetoric of the news conferences, what they say they're going to claim. When they get to a court, they realise they can't really make those claims. What do you make of this narrative that Donald Trump is trying to cling on because of potential legal issues? Now, anything from using various parts of the office to gain his own profit. There were the campaign financing rules alleging this, so-called payoff of Stormy Daniels, to various acts and so on that he's possibly transgressed. But then Joe Biden, the hints that he won't pursue this because he's got enough on his plate. Where does this land, and how much of a motive do you think this is?
Look, there are a million good reasons to want to remain president of the United States. From what I hear, it's a pretty good gig. And before we get to the question of how it protects Donald Trump from legal jeopardy or not, the only other point I'd make on that, Tom, is to point out that the decisions that a Biden Justice Department, and I stress a Justice Department, perhaps less Biden himself, that they make about federal cases or not. Keep in mind, Donald Trump faces some legal jeopardy from state cases where there is very little, in fact, no formal power for a president of the United States or even the United States Department of Justice, a federal body, to tell a state, effectively their version of a DPP, what to do or what not to do. And in fact, the two cases that are perhaps the most advanced in terms of getting close to allegations about the criminality or corruption of the Trump organization are the ones up in New York State that Biden himself or a Justice Department can't really do anything about.